Nothing better than using something that is supposed to protect you and then have it end up screwing you later on.
Some insurance companies are like, this is too risky. There's no market for it and we're going to get out.
You're given this thing that's supposed to help you in your home and you get penalized for using it.
People need to understand that insurance is based on risk.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of MillenniUP. So we're going to jump right into this topic because Seth and I were just off screen talking very passionately. I was speaking very passionately about this topic and we just decided to hit record. So as if we haven't talked about insurance enough, we're going to talk about it again because
Yes.
Who knew there was so much to talk about regarding insurance. So we actually have a list of points that were sent to us from an insurance agent that we work with. And this is homeowners insurance specifically. We have had another episode where we had Brian Cannon come on about health insurance. This is more specifically about homeowners and very lightly about car insurance. It's really about bundling them. It saves you money. That's probably the extent we're going to talk about car insurance, but mostly homeowners insurance. So the point that Seth and I were just talking about off screen was about how homeowners insurance and using your homeowners insurance and filing claims on your house, especially anything water related, can negatively impact the marketability of your home when you go to sell it. So nothing better than using something that is supposed to protect you and then have it end up screwing you later on. So my point was, we actually have a client who's going through the same thing. I bought my house. Something happened because it does. I had a leak in my water line in my refrigerator from whoever installed that. It was me. It was installed correctly. Just want to say I did do it correctly. The line was frayed. But anyway, slow leak into my kitchen. It was like Tony Hawk's skate park in my kitchen with like my floors buckled. I ignored it long enough. I ended up having to get them. I called my homeowner's insurance because as one does, something goes wrong. You call the policy that you're paying all this money for out of your escrow account every month to come and fix it, right? Well, okay, cool. So they did. They fixed it, had that claim. And then I guess a couple of years ago, I got my roof replaced, homeowner's insurance. Not sorry, because I got an $8,000 roof for about $350. Awesome. And then I may have used my homeowner's insurance one more time, may not have. Regardless, I think I had like 3 claims total because I have homeowner's insurance. Yay, what a great thing to have. Fixes all my problems. I called one of our other insurance brokers to also, because, we were shopping around for one of my clients where he actually ended up saving a deal. And we're going to talk about that later. And I got talking to him about myself. I'm like, wonder if I could save some money on homeowner insurance. Sure. Yeah. You can shop me around and see. Nope. I can't get other homeowners insurance. I am stuck with what I have. It's not awful. Actually, I just sent it to my accountant yesterday. It's not great either. But, you're given this thing that's supposed to help you in your home and you get penalized for using it. So
yes,
we're going to give some tips of, some things that can help you in your homeowner's insurance, kind of debunk things that you thought that would cost you more in homeowner's insurance, but actually don't, and then go through some stuff in between. So,
yeah. So it definitely does. I have an insurance claim against my house. And I had to think long and hard about whether I wanted to do it because, you want to save up those claims for something that's like super serious where you need to leverage that.
But nobody ever told me that.
And that's exactly why we're here, Jen. That's exactly
that is why we're here. That is why we're doing it, because you would never think that it's like, okay, yeah, it's like renting and having maintenance come and, having to decide, is this worth having maintenance come because it's going to penalize me if I use it? It's like you're given X amount of times to be able to use something that you pay for every month. And you need to ration them, something that is never brought to my attention.
Yeah. So people need to understand that insurance can be great. You have some massive problem with your house, they'll rebuild it, and
I'm not sorry for filing a claim for my roof. That was great.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there are ways to make it cost effective. The problem is that people need to understand that insurance is based on risk, and if Jen is a very risky file. If in the scope of an insurance company who looks at her file and says, "Listen, she's got 2, maybe 3 claims. That roof was not small." Um, there
But
are,
it's so
and
funny to
then
me though,
versus
because it's like you say, oh, she is a risky file. She's had 2 or 3 claims. I have lived here for 7 years.
yes, people live somewhere for 40 years and have no claims. So, in the grand scheme of things, you are riskier than a lot of people.
So risk equals uh, more money out of the insurance company's pocket that you're lining in the first place.
Well, that's how insurance companies work everywhere, man. Like
That's
that's why
wild.
they weren't giving away life insurance during they weren't issuing life insurance during COVID because more people were
You don't
passing
need to use
away.
it. It's why
What's
it's why I
that?
couldn't get my cat pet insurance because now he's diabetic and now they don't want to insure him because it'll cost
Yeah, I
them
mean,
money.
listen. If your house is on fire, you can't get fire insurance. So like in the end, it's all based on risk. And we also just talked about uh, um, areas of the country that have higher risk, and like where insurance companies are saying
Mhm.
you can either pay this enormous premium or we're not going to insure you at all. Some insurance companies are like, this is too risky. There's no market for it, and we're going to get out. But in the context of home ownership, home purchasing, yeah, you're right. Not a lot of people talk about the idea that your premium is going to go up. And we just got done with a past client of ours who had to weigh. They had a leak under their toilet. The wax ring in their toilet went, and it compromised their whole floor. And I said, guys, before you file that claim, make sure that you are aware of the costs because it might not be worth a water claim on your policy because they just bought last year and like
Mhm.
something else goes bad. Then you got 2, and then if you get a third, like it really becomes prohibitive. Um, so one of the things that, and I'm going to read right from the list because I don't want to get this wrong. Before when we had an insurance, and you guys can go back to that episode, we'll link it in the show notes. It was a lot about like what kind of riders you should have, and a lot about like utility line coverage and sewer line. And the reason is because at that time I had just had somebody who I told to get sewer line coverage a million times and they didn't do it. And I just wanted to, make sure that everybody understands. You should have utility line rider. That's for your electric line, your water line, your sewer line. But we're going to talk about some other like little tips and tricks. A lot of people do know this part is that homeowners and auto should be packaged together. If you can do that, that is usually optimal because it's just kind of spreading the risk out a little bit.
Now,
Um,
something I'll say on that though is, if you already have car insurance and you're purchasing whether it's like probably usually if you're going to be purchasing your first house, don't necessarily automatically just go straight to the homeowner's insurance policy that is with the car insurance policy you have, because the one that you're
yes.
probably going to use more coming up is going to be your homeowner's insurance policy, and that's the one that's maybe more expensive. So speak to somebody who handles insurance on a day-to-day basis and start having somebody shop those for you. So you might move your car insurance over to another company to be able to have better homeowners insurance coverage.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to some of the companies that I see on a lot of the like football game, ads, but like there are certain companies that are great for car insurance and they're cheap and they're great for someone who's 25 years old, but they shouldn't be insuring your home.
Right.
You should be going back to a broker, an insurance broker, so they can shop all the companies instead of going to like a State Farm, Farmers Insurance. And there's some great agents there, and there's some great insurance products that they have. But the same way that you don't go to your credit union for a loan, you want to go to a mortgage broker, you want to go to an insurance broker because they can go and shop your specific case across all markets and all
Which
companies.
is what I had tried to do with ours, because I mean, the one that I have is the one that I got stuck with from when I first purchased and didn't have any of this
Mhm.
very useful information.
That's right.
But no shade to my agent, though. She's amazing. Um, but, and I tried to then use somebody who is an insurance broker to be able to shop around for me. And now I can't use them because I use my homeowner's insurance too much. And it's not like I don't know who my insurance agent is or who my contact person is. And I told him, and I was like, Jim, I'm so sorry. Like, I want you to be my insurance broker.
I know.
So,
I
like,
know.
before it is
So
too late and before you can't switch, just be very proactive about all of this.
Sure. Let's talk about this next point. I think it's super important because all homes have this. Unless you're buying a condo, you don't need to worry about it. But is the age of the roof. So
Hmm.
insurance companies are getting very stingy about roofs. People are there's just too many damn gens out there getting cheap roofs for $350.
Right,
No, I mean
sorry.
in all fairness, that this is happening with all this hail damage
Mhm.
in our area. We don't have like massive hurricanes here, but people are, we get a thunderstorm and then the roofing companies are out that day, sometimes if not the next day, just knocking on doors and be like, we need to inspect your roof because if you have hail damage, we're going to just replace, we're going to get your insurance company to pay for it. Insurance companies are wise to that. So roofs are a very, very sensitive subject for insurance companies. So if you're looking at houses and it's like 25-year-old roof, or they don't know how old the roof is, you should expect to pay more for insurance. And there's times when, like, if the roof is so bad, they actually are now, insurance companies are sending drones out. It happened to one of my clients in Philly. They sent a drone out. So there was a guy in a car down the street, and he sent a drone over the house to like hover right over the roof,
Oof.
and they basically raised her after she bought her house. They raised her insurance because the stress on the roof was so high.
That's great.
So that's a big one. Like
Well, and that's
if
the
you
little thing.
wanted
I
to,
mean, when we're going to look at houses, I mean, people are thinking of, the cost down the road. Like that is, roofs are one of the biggest things people are considering when we're going to see houses is, oh, well, like what's the age of the roof? Because they know that's going to be an expense for them later on. But what is so minimally considered is, all of the other pieces that go into play once you go under contract and you're shopping your, like, because people need to understand you cannot close on your loan. You can't close your loan and get your loan until you have homeowners insurance. And one of the parts about getting the homeowners insurance, and I ran into this with my person who was buying the home from my seller, it was the day before settlement. They could not get insurance because of the roof. Now, given they didn't tell the insurance company that we had fixed it and didn't send them over all of the documentation that we had, but that's neither here nor there. But when you're under contract and like you might know mentally, okay, the roof is about 15, 20 years old, we're going to have to address that down the line, but you're not considering the fact that you might not be able to close on the home at all if that's not getting addressed. And then who's going to address it?
yeah. So a lot of times, what'll happen is if there's a seller credit that can help things along, you can also take possession. And I think insurance underwriters would work with you if you say, okay, I will replace it 30 days after settlement.
But then you need to have a
Um,
plan for that to happen.
And then you need to have a plan. But like honestly, guys, like if you're buying a house that's got a 25-year-old roof, you should be budgeting to replace that within the next year or two anyway. If you do replace your roof, you should tell your insurance company about it, by the way. That's another thing that people don't do. They don't update. You can update your insurance. Like when I redid my house and I obviously I added square footage and I want, I need the square footage added. So, because if my house went down, they'd only cover 2,000 square feet instead of, the now gross square footage I have. But I told them I got new windows, I got new siding, I got, new roof, I got new HVAC, like, and that did bring my cost down. So when you do make a home
Oh, I
improvement,
just got new stairs. That sounds safe.
that sounds safe. You might want to put that, and then probably won't because the expectation is
That
like,
they
oh,
shouldn't
your
be in the
stairs
first
aren't
place.
falling apart. No, but no. In
God
all
forbid my
seriousness,
insurance agent actually ever watches or listens to this podcast.
yeah, yeah. Whoever you may be. But going into that, like, let's move on to pools. Like, people
Yeah.
think pools add a risk to a house, and actually, the pools are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
My
they're
neighbor just
they're
got a
they're cool.
pool. I told them add that to your insurance policy. They called their insurance company and talked to them. She's like, it didn't do anything to her, and it didn't change what we pay. It's on there now.
Yeah,
They know we have it. So if something happens to it, then it can get covered. But and it's important to know where it is. You and I were talking off camera about this. Like, depending on where your pool is at,
yes,
if your pool is higher ground than your home and something happens to the pool and it decides to flood your entire home, yeah, that's probably not going to be great for them. But in my neighbor's case, they leveled out their backyard. If anything happens to their pool and it collapses, all of that water is just going to go down into some wooded area and not hurt
sure.
them or anybody else.
Yeah. So basically, if the house is if it's an above ground pool and it's above your house, so I've had that. I've actually have a couple examples here. I have a family in Reading, Pennsylvania, who they have a house. It's very tight lot, and it is built into a hill. And this above ground pool is, if that thing ever went and got compromised or overfilled or anything like that, it would go right into their house. I believe an insurance company would, and if any insurance agents are listening to this and I'm wrong, let me know. But I do believe the orientation of the pool and the elevation and the topography of the lot does matter. The opposite of before Ida. So Hurricane Ida came through here and created, and basically it was a 500-year event. We seem to have 500-year events every 5 years, but that's a topic for another time. But I had a listing in Broomall, PA, and they there was so much rain that fell so fast that this house, which was 70 years old, the pool was original, overflowed and then went right into the basement of the house, putting about 3 feet of water into the basement.
That's also the storm that we always call the exception storm. Like if I'm ever looking at the seller's disclosure and it says like, has the house ever had, or does the basement ever taken on water or had water damage, and says yes, and it says the date like what was September 2021, I go, that was Ida. Like if
Well, that was
one
Ida,
only time, it's like that was a freak storm.
But the year before in 2020, and I'm sure you don't remember it because you weren't. I don't know if you were licensed yet.
Not 20.
There was a massive storm. I remember I had an inspection, and our inspector was up in the middle of this. It was a tropical storm, and it dumped. And at that time, it took me. So I live about 15 minutes from Lansdale. It took me 2 hours and 45 minutes to get home because every road I went down was flooded. It was crazy rainstorm. Then as I'm coming home, I get a call from my seller saying, hey, this was a house he had grown up in and he was 60 years old. And he's like, hey, bad news. My pool just overflowed into my home and I'm pumping it out as we speak.
No.
And we were under contract. And I closed the deal, Jen. I still got that deal.
I'm sure you did. When in 2020 was this? Because, and it was COVID.
It was July. It was July of 2020. And I remember like texting my inspector that day and be like,
I know exactly what storm that was. We started flooding. This was when I was working in the outlets and the power was out. The store was flooding. We were using merchandise to have to try to like keep the water out of the store. And yeah, I was dealing with different issues. But yeah, I can imagine that happening.
Yeah. So in the end, you should just keep that in mind with pools. Pools think, oh, our insurance is going to go up, blah, blah, blah. I actually thought that until I read this. So I'm learning something new every day.
People may have like, if there's somebody who's like on the fence even about getting a pool and kind of like weighing pros and cons in there, I could imagine a deciding factor being, oh, that's going to raise our insurance premiums like so much. Yeah. It's not worth it. Like call an agent, see if it is, make your informed decisions. It may not.
That's absolutely right. Speaking of pools and water, let's talk about water claims. So you had a water claim.
I did have a water claim. Did you know that if they find any mold, then it will not be covered?
Yes, and I do know that if you have flood insurance, that it will not cover any of the possessions, and it will only cover like I think like a certain amount of drywall and everything like that, and it won't cover mold either. It's like mold is so like nebulous that like insurance companies don't like getting involved with that.
Fortunately, so yeah. I was a damsel in distress, and there wasn't mold. But if there was, they may have just gotten it taken care of and just not told anybody.
That's right. And listen, all kinds of stuff happens with these insurance claims, and people feel sympathy for certain people, and you bring in a public adjuster. That's like a whole other thing, and because their job is to make the claim as big as possible. That's not always the best thing either. But they can also be great defenders and advocates for people because insurance companies don't like to pay out. They're trying to do their best to not get to have to pay out that premium because just it changes their risk profile. So some great insurance agents out there, but it's not the most straightforward business. I have a neighbor who had their sewer line was leaking into their HVAC system.
Ew.
Yeah, and insurance wasn't covered. Didn't want to cover it. So there was a huge thing, And like, there's all these mechanisms, like 30 day, they have 30 days to respond. So like on day 29, they would like respond to then to like push the can down. And basically
Yes.
sometimes what insurance companies will do is they'll just wait out the client where they just have to fix it. And then as soon as they fix it, the insurance company's like, well, you touched it. It's done. Like, we can't cover it now. So there's that type of stuff that occurs. It's not common, man. Most insurance companies are well-meaning, and especially if you're prepared and you know what your rights are under your policy, it's okay. But water claims are a big deal, guys, and that's something as realtors we really pay a lot of attention to, because very first contract I wrote, and I got an offer accepted. And we do this now as a regular thing, is we check the past. We call our insurance agent and run the property through, like, there's a database, like a national database for claims. We check to make sure that because on the Pennsylvania seller's disclosure, they have to disclose whether there's been a past claim. And usually it says no. If it says yes, then they explain it. But we always double check. And on the very first contract I got it was in Bluebell. And the year before the seller went to sell this house, he had a $38,000 claim for a basement that filled up with 6 feet of water while he was away on vacation. The year before, he sold the house and didn't disclose it.
That's one thing if you forget.
You don't. It was fraud. And so the insurer, and I don't know what he was thinking, because by the time we get under contract, they do that check to make sure that there's no past claims against the property, but we do it proactively. So we don't get all the way down the road and then the buyer gets bad news. Like, oh, by the way, there's some massive like structural problem here that was fixed 3 years ago and that they didn't disclose, and they have to like reopen the whole file. So there's all kinds of stuff, but the water claim is a big deal, man. People, fire, wind, water, gravity, insurance companies don't like it, but generally there are house fires and fire-related smoke damage and all that stuff. That's not very common, but because you've got basically toilets suspending water in your house all the time, you had hundreds of yards of pipes running through your house, and you've also got people who are like, there was a property in Phoenixville where she went to make like pasta or something, left the water on at 2 a.m. and fell asleep on her couch, and it flooded the entire building. And it was like a multifamily building.
That one.
You remember that one?
I do. That just happened.
And it's like, so
I can't.
So what are we going to do? So she made the error. Everyone was asleep. Water was coming out of the outlets.
How do you do that? How do you?
And it was 2 a.m. It was 2 a.m. I think she turned on the water and she fell asleep on the couch. And the whole thing
pasta at 2 a.m., I have been having some altering drinks beforehand.
No, I honestly think this woman was really innocent. I think she was coming off her shift.
Oh.
I think she was having her dinner.
Oh my God.
She got done at like midnight or something, and wherever she was working, and she just came home to make herself dinner and fell asleep. I think it was like but then so the landlord's got a policy, all the tenants have, but all the possessions, and this place was just recently redone. So like insurance companies hate water.
And I mean,
so you need
just
to be
redone,
like and literally in like leased. May.
Yeah.
And just all leased and filled. And now all of a sudden everyone's out and they got to rebuild the whole house. So people don't like water, or insurance companies don't like water. So if you guys are listening and you have a water claim, and that's what we told our past clients yesterday, you be very careful about what you file, because when you do it, it sticks with the property. It's findable. It can hurt the marketability of the property, because water claims is like kind of scary. So you always want to be very sure. Like, listen, you got some massive leak and all your floors are heaved and like you've got a foot of water in your house and whatever. That's fine. But you need to just be very careful, because every time you file a claim, it's one more thing where they're going to be able to make your life not so great.
And then you want to talk about one other one that's on that list?
Why don't you talk about the other one on the list? I'm getting parched here with all the talking.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go get some water.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm parched. For those of you who are not watching, I also just spewed water all over my computer. Dogs. So our insurance friend over here is advising people that if you're going to get a dog while you're under contract, wait until you close on your house to get it, because there are breed restrictions and they can increase your policy. Now, Seth and I were talking about this, and I'm like, that's stupid. Who's gonna say, like, oh, you got a dog, can't have your insurance, or your insurance is going up. We saw a dog going potty on your front lawn. Like, it's the like insurance police gonna come around and like call you out for having a dog if you didn't like put it on your policy. But what I mean, now listen, I am also of the population that thinks breed restrictions are stupid. I understand it is based on statistics and risk and the perceived temperament of these certain breeds. But I also am the one to say that I think that it's more owner responsible than dog responsible, but that's me. Regardless, it is what it is, and there's restricted breed list, and some breeds have a higher risk of biting other humans and causing other claims, and it can increase your liability.
And that's the end of Jen's TED Talk on
I think it's
unfair discrimination against
honestly,
dog
I
breeds.
think it is. Oh, I hate dog discrimination. I get it from a insurance and liability standpoint, and
How so?
okay, I don't. I think it's dumb.
Okay, because I'm not understanding your logic. It's not tracking.
It's okay, just because
Unless you
because there's a
secretly know that there might be a little bit higher of a risk with these breeds.
well, I think it's more of an owner problem and a training problem, because I'm sorry, pit bulls are on the list. I have yet to see a mean pit bull. They're the cuddliest, happiest, like doofiest dogs.
We used to have an agent on our team who was pregnant and got attacked by their dog.
I forgot about that one.
Not
No, it
another
came
dog.
from okay. But you to lump them all in and say that they are like a bad
Well,
breed.
listen. I don't want you
I want to
discriminating
know in the
against those.
comments.
I don't.
I want to know
I
in
don't
the
want you
comments who
discriminating against.
agrees with breed restrictions, and is it a
Yeah,
breed
you're
problem
gonna
or
get.
is it an owner problem? That is just, I'd love to know. But regardless, whatever your
Well, you know
opinion
what? And
is,
I don't want you discriminating against 17-year-old roos, because some of those roos are really strong and well built, and they're not going to leave. You know,
you
I
can't
mean, like,
train a
listen,
roof, you can train a dog.
this is yeah. You can install a really good roof, and you can put at 5 years the roof's already leaking. Like, so that's the parenting, right? The installer's the parent.
Okay.
Okay.
We know where Seth
But at
stands
the
on
end of the
dogs.
day, it's like it is what it is.
Yes.
It's there is over the course of all the risk, they have found that these dogs have a higher prevalence. And I have no dog. I have, like, pun intended, I have no dog in this fight. I don't know. I had a client in Quakertown, meanest looking dog, pit bull, and Ella was the sweetest dog ever. Scared the shit out of me when I went to the listing appointment, because she was like all muscular and like looks like she was going to charge the storm door. Nicest dog ever. Once she like sniffed me and like, I petted her, she was like, oh, okay, and then went away. But like,
yes, my nephew dog, Rusty McBucket. Big 85
yeah, and
pound
listen,
German Shepherd will bark the absolute living hell out of you. But God forbid you start rubbing that dog's belly. And he's like, oh my God, I love it here. He loves his coconut oil baths and is a little princess. Like, oh,
so anyway, we want to talk about dogs because dogs in the eye, this is the real world.
Yes.
Can't die on this hill. We have to talk about what we're talking about here and let everyone know that buying a dog, and honestly, guys, if you're also, forget about home ownership. If you are a tenant or you're young and you're 23 and your parents told you could never have a dog and you buy one, please, 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 please look at this restriction list, because landlords will turn you down.
You will make your
have
life
limits.
a lot harder by having a dog if you do plan, especially if you plan to rent.
Yeah, especially if you plan to rent. And
if you
the
go
landlord,
to buy, there's even, you have things to consider of like, how much is it going to cost to fence in your yard if that's something that you need, or if you need to have a house with a yard, or if you need to be in proximity to dog parks. And if you like, repairs in the house for if your dog decides to like scratch something up or, whatever it is. I mean, they're just an added cost in all things beyond just the dog's care itself.
Yeah, and so I think it's important for people to just understand that these dog restrictions, they exist,
Mhm.
and don't not tell people, your insurance agent either, because believe it or not, your dog bites like another, that can be filed against your homeowners.
Mhm.
If you never tell your agent against your dog, or your agent about the dog, it's the same thing as like having your house on fire and asking for fire insurance, or like getting diagnosed with cancer and asking for life insurance. Like they're not going to insure you. So it's super important for you guys to understand that. Oil tanks are another one. I have a friend who had an oil tank in their basement, and the insurance company, actually, the insurance company made a mistake that they didn't actually document it and put it as a rider on the policy, and this oil tank leaked
Mm.
and filled up her and put 6 inches of oil in her basement,
Can you
and that is
imagine with just like how expensive, well, like the damage aside and the fact that you have that much oil just spewing in your basement in and of itself, but can you also just imagine the cost of all of that oil? Because oil is
yeah.
so expensive, and especially to fill the tank, and now all of a sudden you don't have it either.
Do you know what the process is for something like that?
Tell us, Mr. Construction. It's certainly
Your
not
snark
siphoning
level,
it.
your snark level is very high today, Jen. Um, so basically, what happens is that oil gets into your basement floor, and then they have to
Oh, that's
excavate,
right. Yeah.
and they have to test, and then excavate more, and until they get a reading that is acceptable, they'll keep excavating. Like if you have real porous like earth underneath your slab, like of your basement, like they could go down feet.
Right. And,
And they got to get
excavating
all
to take
that
it all.
material out and dispose of it. It's super expensive.
Yeah.
It sucks.
No.
And by the way, your entire house smells like oil.
Ugh.
So you want to make sure if you got oil or an oil tank that is above ground and in the house, for sure. It's very rare where you find a buried tank in a house. It's just that they don't do that. But oil tanks are a big problem because of what I just went through, or what I just described. It's the cost of it all is very prohibitive. So I think we can leave it at that, dude. That's 30 minutes of insurance nuggets. Guys, we have
There's so much
some.
to say about insurance.
Well, listen, I think it's important. I think the realtor of the future is going to need to know more about these moving parts. And we talked about Florida and Texas in another episode, and I'm not sure if that's gone out yet. But in the end, it's insurance is becoming very much a part of a consideration for housing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's these insurance companies with all these natural disasters and storms and water, and then all these ambulance chasers, roofing companies, they're under assault. And so a good agent, real estate or insurance agent, should understand the broad strokes of this stuff. And we work with some of the best insurance people. I have vetted so many insurance agents, and we have like 3 or 4 that are awesome. Even if you're not looking to buy a house and you're in Pennsylvania or anywhere really, you want a good look at your insurance. We are definitely able to connect you with the right people. The same way, like if you want life insurance, you want health insurance. Mm-hmm. We just got done with Brian Cannon. I think it's super important for people to understand that this is something that you need to keep tabs on, and be careful about filing a claim. Don't do what Jen did. It's like, oh, I got a problem, fix it. I got a problem.
You just get so used to renting and living life with maintenance. Anytime something goes wrong, that you just substitute homeowners insurance with maintenance. But like, you can't, and don't.
Yeah. What's up? Okay, guys. We'll see you on the next one, and I hope you found this helpful.
Okay, bye.